because at the end of the day, you've got to play the matchup. So most of the matchups will still end up happening anyway. And we're going to go into this semi-final match between xixo and Orange. Sorry for the Talkstone, but now we're on to the main event, the actual Hearthstone. Let's see what they've got for us, and hope they cut across when I finish this sentence.
Perhaps. I'm just curious to see what they decide to go with here in this first game, because really it could be anything, especially because of the way that their decks are pretty much mirrored, apart from the Druid and the Warlock here. On the side of Orange, just going down the line here, Rogue is pretty reasonable against everything, kind of just loses to the Pirate Warrior, however, and we've had this long discussion about going against Mage. Druid was kind of the same thing I just mentioned, good against 2, bad against 2. Could go with the Dragon Warrior here for Orange. That is the one difference. That's the other difference other than Druid and Warlock, as the Dragon Warrior for Orange and the Pirate Warrior here for xixo. So that could come out as well, because it's reasonable against the Rogue, and reasonable against most lineups. In fact, the more I think about it, I think that Orange might be starting off with the Dragon Warrior here, just because it's so solid. And obviously, Mage is something that people have brought out, but it's kind of been up and down. Struggles sometimes, kind of crushes other times.
Yeah, just to talk about that Mage that you mentioned there. Basically, everybody brought fairly different Mage decks for the group stages. Mm-hmm. And then they all looked at all the decks that have been successful, and almost to a man, they copied xixo's list. Like, Orange actually admitted he copied xixo's list. He just said, xixo did well, I liked his list better than mine. A couple of cards didn't perform for me. I took his list, but xixo's actually changed his list.
Yeah, that's the funny thing. I mean, looking at it, Orange has a bit more of a greedy list, for lack of a better term. He has more higher end cards. Looking at it, xixo is kind of like that Rage Freeze Mage archetype, but he has Inkmaster Solia, but no Manic Soulcaster and no Archmage Antonidas, if I remember correctly. And for Orange, he does have Inkmaster Soulcaster and the Antonidas in there, but
that hurts. That line through your face.
Ouch!
It's really painful.
They just sliced us in half there, but
we're going. We got the game.
Hey, I got it
progress.
Right. So Orange did go for the Dragon Warrior, because it's just there's not that horrible matchups there. A lot of 50-50s, but pretty standard, or pretty solid to throw out first here. And xixo going for a list very similar to Bunny Hopper, if not the exact same list here, with his no combo Fellfire infused Renalock.
Yeah, and why would that be? Why would people start taking out the combo, especially when the combo's pretty good in the mirror match?
Yeah, it's pretty reasonable. The problem is that it can be pretty greedy. Faceless Manipulator, for one, is a card that if your opponent knows that you're running it, they'll do everything they can to eliminate anything that could be faceless. And then so a lot of the time it's stuck in your hand and ends up becoming negative tempo here. But
yeah, or you end up using like the power overwhelming, and then your Leroy is suddenly kind of sad, and you've got a 6-2 that helps your opponent in your hand.
Yeah.
So that makes sense to me, and both players are going to be happy with this early start.
Yep. Looks like xixo's just going to go ahead and tap here rather than use the Mortal Coil. Typically, Mortal Coil is always going to be useful because of the awkward way in which the removal from Renalock operates. Sometimes you're just a damage short. If you use, Shadow Bolt on something with 5 health, you use a Demon Wrath on something with 3 health, you're always going to want to need that. But this is part of the reason why Orange decided not to attack last turn with a patch. Just wanted to immediately buff up his Frothing Berserker here. And now he's got a 3-4 on the board and no Shadow Bolt in hand here for xixo.
Yeah, and even if the 3-4 gets dealt with somehow, the Monkey into the Korkun Elite / Twilight Guardian, depending how he sees it, is looking like he's going to curve straight through xixo's face. And xixo, not having any heal at the moment, going to have to rely on maybe the Twilight Drake getting him out of this one in a turn or two's time.
Yeah, in a turn or two are the key words there. And this Monkey is certainly fierce, but going to be the Mortal Coil. Just needs to draw into something. Obviously, it's nice to have it later on. And picked up the Shadow Bolt off the top. That is really painful if you're a xixo. If you could play that on curve, that would have been huge there. But as it stands, Orange going to keep on the pressure.
Yeah, Orange with a pretty easy turn here. I wondered if he was going to take his time about it just to represent having another 3-drop in his hand, but yeah, it still doesn't necessarily mean there isn't another one, but he just goes there, slams it on the table, and is in such a strong position here.
And yeah, in xixo, he does the play which uses up all his mana, which is certainly most likely the correct play here, but it really feels bad having to do this when the Frothing Berserker is still on the field and still a threat. Yeah,
it allows him to Shadow Bolt into Swamp Ooze next turn, so if Orange played another weapon, for instance, that could be a very powerful play. Also allows him, he may use the Swamp Ooze for the board presence anyway, which would be really painful for him. just making sure the next few turns will go more smoothly by using it efficiently like that.
Orange, he could go for an interesting play where he goes for a slam plus Alex Strauss's champion into the Twilight Drake here and throw his monkey in as well and then get a lot of damage in with the frothing to the face. But like you mentioned, Shadow Bolt would shut that there. And back over to xixo, this is kind of tough.
This is the other effect of having to play why he played the Twilight Drake last turn, of course, making sure that he had the tempo going into this turn as well as the mana, so that at least he could do something. If he'd Shadow Bolted last turn, he'd now be playing the Twilight Drake and would just be dead.
Alright, well, Orange has the opportunity to throw 3 damage at the face, or excuse me, 7 damage, 3 from the hand at the face here. And that would make it so that, Orange can just win the following turn if there's no Reno. And the question is, can you afford to play the slow game, play the long game, or is it time to just risk it?
Yeah, always a very difficult decision. And Orange, one of the features of his play this tournament has been how well he's made these balanced decisions. He's been finding ways to put a very good attempt at lethal or similar on the board, whilst making sure that if the Reno is there or whatever, that he's still going to be in an okay spot. And so he's balanced it again this time. He's got the Extra as a champion plus a 4/3 for lethal if needed. And if Reno comes down, he's going to be able to repopulate that board pretty well.
Yeah, good in-between play here from Orange, but not going to find lethal most likely through what looks to be a taunt coming up here from xixo with that Defender of Argus. And is he ballsy enough to tap? We do see that he would die if he did that, but yeah, Defender of Argus can come down and take out the Blackwing, and then I suppose Orange can get through it with the Slam and the Alex Strauss's champion, so maybe actually xixo could be dead right now. The faceless, I suppose the faceless Shambler might be a bit better than Defender of Argus in this situation because you can attack with the Drake, take the damage off the non-taunt, and then still have the the 4 or 5 remaining. Looks like he's going to tap because he needs to take a little bit of a chance here. Going to go with the faceless Shambler, like I just mentioned.
Yeah, this gives him the maximum chance of finding Reno with any sort of life left in him.
But he looks like he's going to die because the Slam plus Alex Strauss champion will be able to get through this faceless Shambler anyway. The tap does xixo in here. He tried to take a chance, but ends up burning him in the end. And Orange is going to take game number 1.
1-0 in the best of 7. Pretty happy Orange at this point. Never really looked like losing that one when we could see there was no Reno in xixo's hand.
Yeah, it was tight though in a way because if xixo ever did pick up healing or taunts, or a better taunt I should say, or Reno, then he kind of just throws, turns the game on his head. So there was always that threat there, but wasn't to be the case, and Orange able to tempo out the victory.
Yeah, so 1-0, and Orange's strong run continuing through this. xixo, of course, did win his group. Orange just had to play Italian and to get here.
Yep, and yeah, Italian and Huang. So
and xixo taking down PNC. So both players going through, but Orange just had to do it the slightly harder way after being 4-0 in his group.
After being 4-0 and losing to Nairia, narrowly losing that #1 seed. So it makes it a little bit more difficult, but he has managed to find his way here regardless. We'll see what he decides to go for in game 2 here. Going to be the Druid, and unfortunately for him, goes up against the Rogue. This is one of the more polarized matchups.
Yeah, Druid just doesn't usually have the ability to put enough stuff down early enough to not lose to sap, but on this occasion
it looked really good for Orange for a moment there, but xixo does pick up the Pirate, and that is the start that xixo wants to see here. However, if he continues to draw poorly, Orange might run away with this, but again, Swipe in the end. I can't believe xixo picked up Swipe off Swashbuckler. By the way, that's the only Swashbuckler in this deck.
Yeah, that's good play, definitely, to get the Swipe there.
Well played indeed.
Anytime you get any sort of decent spell off Swashbuckler as Rogue, it feels so unfair.
Yeah.
Just because it has so much synergy with the rest of your deck.
Yeah, Rogue is really good at using spells, as it turns out. Orange still has a pretty decent set of turns coming up here. He can go Innervate Fandral or Innervate Jade Spirit and then coin out the remaining minion on the following turn. Jade Spirit would be a 2/3 and a 2/2, so slightly more stats than Fandral, but not separated very well.
Yeah, he won't be tempted, I assume, to Innovate, Coin, and Nourish here and just get that mana sorted out.
It's a little bit, even though you do get the mana this turn, the fact that you're not getting anything on the board right now is a bit troublesome. So I think I appreciate this play here.
Yeah, not letting Rogue get running away with it is usually pretty smart.
Well, xixo does have the backstab here, so he can clear the board, but it clears his own board in the process. Can go for the coin swipe. That just feels so bad. He was the one who went first in this matchup.
Yeah, and he just has one of those hands that we talk about sometimes that rogues get that looks really, really bad, but it's nothing that picking a questing adventurer off the top wouldn't solve, or even a auctioneer.
Yeah, just go face with these two minions. Obviously, he's not, xixo's not too worried about Orange using his hero power here. Much better than going for a coin into some sort of 4-drop, which Orange has. So certainly makes sense here for xixo. Wants to save his 1/1s on the field, and that will help a lot for next turn with swipe.
Yeah.
Well, certainly, if the Vandal does come out.
Just another thing about going face there, xixo considers Rogue an aggro deck. Not even a mid-range deck or a combo deck. When I was learning Rogue, he dropped by like, it's an aggro deck, just keep hitting him in the face. Yeah, I think he considers everything an aggro deck, to be perfectly honest.
It certainly acts like that, that way a lot of the time here, especially when you get those pyros earlier on. And then you basically the gadgets and the drakes act like the drakes in the shaman, right? You're just cycling into more stuff that will kill your opponent. All right, Jade Blossom is the pickup here for Orange. Not too bad. At least allows him to do something this turn rather than using simple hero power. So he will be on 6 mana next turn. Not really anything to do with that Gadgetzan, but able to get more mana, get some stuff on the board. Certainly pretty good.
Yeah, he'll be able to nourish for... Because the Gadget's not in hand, depending on what his pickup is, he can go for cards or for mana. He will probably go for cards, but with the Gadgetzan there, he may just feel that the mana will be helped to fuel the Auctioneer, which will get him the cards anyway.
All right, well, second Feral Rage is the pickup here for Orange. He might want to use his mana to nourish here, but at the same time, the Tomb Pillager is a pretty big threat, and it's tempting to gain the board for the first time this game.
Yep.
Could go for Feral Rage, just hero power afterward, get that 1 extra health. It's kind of like armoring up rather than shield blocking. It's tempting to go for the second Feral Rage for armor, go for those the scales, but don't think it's necessary right now. But it looks like, he's hovering over the nourish. Okay, so this might be his last chance to do this.
Yeah, he's going to potentially go down to 15.
Going to go for the mana instead.
Yep.
So looks like next turn going to be Gadgetzan plus Feral Rage. Very interesting turn here. Not something I was thinking about, because with that Gadgetzan he gets some pressure on and he gets to remove the next thing. I think this means that he's likely to use the Feral Rage for the removal here, even though it gets him low, gets him a lot of tempo.
And the great thing with the way he played that is it's kept his options open. You're saying you think he's going to do this, think he's going to do that. The great thing from Orange's perspective is he can do what he likes.
Right.
He can wait and see how it looks, and if nothing happens, he can gain the armor to draw a card, and if something happens, he can just deal with it.
All right, looks like xixo is going to go in here with the Coin Conceal, I would imagine. And Orange has kind of a counter to this, but not quite.
Yeah, this is the benefit of keeping this Feral Rage available here. He knows exactly what he's got to do here. And other than cast Feral Rage for 8 armor, he has got to start praying really hard.
Yes, Orange obviously a bit concerned about this. I'm curious to see if he goes for Feral Rage, sans the Gadgetzan, just because he wants to fit in a hero power as well, considering there's going to be 10 damage on the field here.
It will almost certainly depend on what he picks up. As it stands, if he picks up a blank, I think he'll need to cycle the Feral Rage. Just have something on the board with the Gadgetzan, and just to...
That allows him to cycle the Wrath on his own minion. Not sure if he wants to go for that. But yeah, there's 10 damage in the field. Looks like he is going to go for the Gadgetzan. I do like this play here. Going for the more risky play, but the play to win, essentially.
Yeah, the extra one. Oh, wow.
And
now he probably will. He'll be so tempted to cycle this Wrath. I don't think he will. He'll just gain the 1 armor, but...
Even picks up a Jade Behemoth here. There is a sap in hand, but it does produce a 4/4 even if it does get sapped. So this game is on pins and needles. If xixo does pick up his own Gadgetzan, he could be on his way to winning as well.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what xixo decides here. Does he feel like he has to go on the defensive, or is he just going to keep smashing face? And where's your conceal?
Right. Yeah, that would have been...
His play made a lot of sense.
Very nice last turn, certainly.
He had seen the 1 Feral Rage last turn, so he did set up the play thinking that there's great chance there's no other Feral Rage, but made it a little bit awkward for him. He's still going to be able to deliver a huge chunk of damage and clear the board up, though. This is by no means over yet. Interesting to see if he burns these 2 cards to get the questing out of range of Wrath, and he does not.
Oh, second Wrath all the top here for Orange. That's absolutely huge. What a pickup. And he may well have sealed the game with that off the top there. Jade Behemoth coming out to protect him. Doesn't even play the gadgets.
Right, he had the option to play the gadgets and draw 2 cards there, but he knows that that's such a swing against most situations that he doesn't need those 2 cards. He just wants to start commencing the win condition, which is hitting your opponent in the face. And if he gets there with this, with xixo picking up another complete blank, Orange is going to be so pleased, because this is such an unfavored matchup.
Oh my goodness. Second counterfeit coin here for xixo. Orange picks up even more to do.
Auctioneer or bust here for xixo, and Aya Blackpaw is insane. xixo gets Edwin Van Cleef laughing at him. It would have been Giant Van Cleef, but he would have just watched those Jades sail past him into the face, and xixo gives that one up.
Yeah, what a crazy game that was. xixo was so close to being able to win the game off, the trigger that he pulled with the Leroy and the small-time Buccaneer, but not quite enough there. Really, it's pretty big, pretty nice risk that he took, considering his hand was very weak. It's, if you don't play the Leroy, then you're probably just playing small-time Buccaneer and passing. And doing that against a Druid, you're just going to always fall behind. You just saw your opponent play a Feral Rage. I can't blame xixo for going down that route. But Orange going to be very pleased, like you mentioned, with that win there. And kind of the way that the Druid just wins that matchup, right? They get a bit of ramp, they get their Jade stuff going, and xixo has a really bad hand.
I mean, we conjectured that maybe Orange would not be completely and utterly up to speed on the Druid deck. That turn where he chose to Nourish into Feral Rage to get the mana, to use his Auctioneer the next turn to keep the cycle coming, also meant that he didn't die with the second Feral Rage. He was able to gain the armor. That turn was not easy. It's one of those turns that looks easy when you make it, but he had to decide to Nourish now for mana, use the Feral Rage, and that would add up to Auctioneer plus Feral Rage the turn after, effectively winning him the game.
It also goes to show how well he understands his own deck list, because what was going to come off the top of his deck, it was going to be some large minion, some sort of card draw, more card draw, which means that you want to have the mana in the first place, or it's going to be a cheap spell which you can combo with the Gadget and Auctioneer here. But looks like Orange has drawn patches.
Yeah, he's caught Fluffy disease. Fluffy drew patches in all 4 of his games in the previous round.
Wow, that is certainly unfortunate, especially in a tournament of this magnitude. But let's see what Orange decides to do here. He can hold on to the patches and just play it on turn 3, just to have that as a sort of spot removal.
Right, and it's correct to do so usually, because from N'Zoth's first mate, the weapon kills the patches, then you can't kill their 2-1 or whatever with your patches. So you do keep it as that removal spell, because it is so easily dealt with by the warrior.
So the question here for xixo is, what does he do right now? He can go for Celsi deck and coin upgrade and get 4 damage to Fates already, but looks like he's going to go for the Fire War Axe first. Okay, this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, he's got the upgrade for next turn and the deck hand. There's going to be a whole chunk of damage at the expense of just missing your first turn slightly.
And then he draws patches off the top. Of course, you take that risk here, though, if you're xixo. Well, let's see if he does indeed do so. Sometimes lucky, although that's not that too much of a big deal seeing that. But yeah, lots of damage going to the face here. Going to be a total of 7 on turn 2. Ouch.
Interesting that Orange is playing Shadow Strike when he's banning Shaman. Is Shadow Strike pretty good in the other matchups as well? Normally associated with killing 5/5s and doing chunks of damage to 7/7s.
There's just so many mid-range minions in the game right now that I don't mind it, especially because there's only so many times you can stab something away, sometimes you just need to kill it. Things like, Thorson, for instance.
Yeah, sure. Because Orange himself here was taking a lot of damage from xixo's turbo start in this very bad matchup, but he has the cards to at least maybe get into this.
He needs to kill xixo very quickly, though.
Yeah.
Because if he just look at xixo's hand, Arcanite Reaper comes in the hand. Just the Corcoran Elite and Leroy Jenkins by themselves are 10 damage. So xixo has a win in about 3 or 4 turns, and Orange has no board. So this is going to have to be very quick here from Orange.
Yeah, the reason you're saying D2 is saying that is that the cards from hand, you add up the damage what is in hand, because those cards cannot be countered. They can't be killed. Well, they can be killed, but it's too late. The Rogue has no healing, it has no taunt, and basically xixo has 20 unstoppable damage in his hand.
Yeah, and this is why people consider this a very favorite matchup for the Pirate Warrior. Even though the Rogue can do some crazy things, it just cannot stop the damage coming in.
Yeah, I mean, it will be able to deal with everything that is played, but unfortunately it will die.
And here's the point where Orange says, I have to take a chance and backstab and face tank this, but it's going to be really painful. He really wants to Shadow Strike this. If he had some sort of prep in hand, it would help him quite a bit, but unfortunately that's not the case.
Yeah, saving the backstab for turn 6 is just kind of futile as well. You're only saving it if you think it's going to kill another minion. But we're past the point where the 2 health guys come onto the board already. He's going to Shadow Strike, he's going to sap.
He's going to sap. All right, so yeah, this is one of the few minions that doesn't kill you right away when it comes out. So one of the few things that you can safely sap, unless you see some sort of Saucy deckhand come out with it. But you've already seen one.
Yeah, we won't see that captain again, I suspect, in this game. xixo will just commence the face smacking.
Well, Orange, even though he is in kind of a race here, he needs to potentially keep his weapon available because he probably needs the tempo of taking out a couple minions, even if it means going a bit lower in health here, so that's why he hasn't attacked quite yet. His next couple turns are pretty much guaranteed to be filled up by Tomb Pillager plus Gadgeton into Cross Your Fingers, so yeah, it's kind of something that Orange have had to do here.
Yeah, and Orange will get the news when this axe goes face that he has lost. Oh, it doesn't go face.
Just kidding.
If it went face, he would have got the news he had lost. xixo obviously knows that he's going to win anyway, but yeah, if that had gone face, Orange would be able to realise, oh, okay.
Well, xixo is just calculating how many turns he needs for lethal and says, I can spend a turn dealing with this, especially because my health isn't that important. Sparring partner is a taunt. In fact, it's 2 taunts.
Yeah, we lied to you guys. They have taunts.
Especially off of a Swashbuckler here. And by the way, that is the 1 Swashbuckler in Orange's deck list. So.
And this has given Orange a plan.
Right.
This now means he can take this 3, shut his eyes, and legitimately plan to have some taunts on the board and hope this mess all goes away.
Right, so xixo's just going to smack the face with his Arcanite Reaper here, but unfortunately for xixo, he's actually going to get stomped by a couple of taunts from the Rogue here. Sparring partner, one of the best minions you can possibly get here off of that Swashbuckler.
Is something crazy going to happen here? The Auctioneer into Prep, into who knows what, into something, into Conceal something else.
Wow, that Saucy deckhand is absolutely huge here. That means that he's going to pick up the win because he can put the Saucy in, he can use his Arcanite Reaper on to the Tomb Pillager. Wow, sometimes them's the breaks.
Yep. Just shows how unfavored the matchup is when you get
2 taunts.
The card that really, really, really helps you and you die next turn.
Yeah.
It didn't help at all, in fact.
Yeah, you thought you were helping yourself with 2 taunts. Unfortunately, you were not. But that is a little bit of a comeback here from xixo, able to take a win with his Pirate Warrior. Not too much of a surprise because Pirate Warrior just seems to pick up wins like that. Obviously against the Rogue, and it would have been good against the Druid if it were remaining as well. But yeah, that leaves the Warlock, Rogue, and Mage for xixo.
Yeah, I mentioned yesterday actually that matchup is so favoured that when Bunny Hopper needed to not lose 3-0 in his groups, he needed to win 1 game to go through, he just kept queuing the Pirate Warrior so the opposing Rogue couldn't avoid it.
Yeah.
His risk reward was don't ever not have this matchup, and he won. He lost. I think he lost 3-1, having won that particular matchup.
And he could win the entire tournament for that decision.
Yeah, that decision means that he's here now. Look at this hand, and look at xixo's hand.
I'm in charge. Patches, you're drunk. Go home. You can see him drooling there. I mean, how much has he had to drink?
He has had a lot to drink, and I'm not surprised, to be honest, because nobody likes him.
Well, he seems pretty famished at the same time. Probably needs to get something to eat. But
now, this is a matchup that Orange understands inside out. He's practiced it a lot with Rage, the original builder of the sort of the slower mage deck.
Rage, the builder of Rage Mage.
Of Rage Mage, yeah, exactly. And he showed yesterday how he knows when he's got to go for it with Rogue and when he hasn't in this matchup, that people are starting to think, including Orange, that is favoured for the Mage.
Yeah, certainly could be the case here, but Orange has a pretty insane questing adventure possibility in his hand right now, even with the prep. So if he picks up something to do with that prep, he could have one of the biggest questing adventures you'll see on turn 3.
It's time to backstab your own Patches. No, let's not do that. But
you're not in charge anymore, Patches.
Playing the patient game here, it was very tempting to make a questing of a size that would have avoided dying in 1 turn. But then you go all in against Mage, you get polymorph, you lose.
I was waiting for the Dirty Rat into Arcane Blast, the questing adventure. That would have been pretty funny, but...
You have a horrible sense of humour. Oh, it'd have been funny watching this guy fall down the stairs. You're one of those, aren't you?
Well, Orange, if he decides to commit the questing adventure, he needs to at least make it 7 health so that it doesn't die to Fireball next turn. Yeah, sometimes you play around things in your opponent's hand, but sometimes you don't want to lose the game on the spot on turn 3. So...
Yeah, he could also look into cold-blooding the patches. So backstab and bump into the Acolyte, cold-blood the patches and say, which one of these do you want to kill? Sure, you can ping my 5-1, but my questing is going to be gigantic, and you're going to spend your whole turn doing that.
Alright, so 7 cards in the hand, I believe he can use them all, considering how many coins he has.
Yeah, he won't use them all, but he'll get the questing out of fireball range, and I think he might make a 5-1 patches here, and that will give a really difficult decision for xixo and start smashing damage home. Let's see what he decides to go with.
Right, so, excuse me, does reach for one of the counterfeit coins here. Going to go for the Cold Blood onto the patches here, use his face onto the Acolyte of Pain here. Gets his questing up to, looks like a 7-7, so that puts it out of fireball range. And going to push 5 damage to the face at the same time. Obviously, this is very daunting for xixo, but has picked up some spell damage with the Arcane Blast, so something like a Frostbolt would help immensely.
Yeah, and now the Reno Jackson, so if he can get hold of this game, he will win it. Like, if he can actually stop this onslaught from these 2 minions plus the next couple of draws.
It might be Dirty Rat time, actually. Because
it's unlikely to miss, yeah.
Right, well, you also have to take a chance at this point.
He won't want to give a free Tomb Pillager. Does he have to take a chance? Like, you ping patches, you expect 10 or 9 for the questing next turn. You go down to 14. You've got to calculate how many outs you have to deal with a zillion questing. I think the answer is exactly 1, but you can also freeze it.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you're xixo here, just surviving on turn 6 with the Reno is not really good enough if you're facing down, you know, a 14-14 or what have you.
But if that's gone as well, then you win the game.
Right, so xixo needs to find a way to clear the questing adventure, and that's why I was thinking, like, the Dirty Rat, maybe we'll be able to get 2 damage in. But we'll see what he decides to go with. Looks like he's going to go for some draw here just to see if he can't pick up something that could deal with it. And the Arcane Blast as well. So yeah, favoring the draw. Obviously, if he just picks up a lot of burn, that can help out quite a bit. But Backstab's not going to help too much here for Orange. He can get more attack on the questing adventure, but that's all.
And he may. So there's an option here for Orange just to go completely all in. And well, he probably won't backstab, but if he does the 9 damage with the face, plus his hero power, that's 10. Puts xixo to 14, which means that next turn, Orange would be able to set up a lethal. He may have to use the backstab now if he's going to do that, actually.
Right, so if you use the backstab and then use the coin and the prep as well, depending on what he picks up, if he can pick up something like a Cold Blood, something like an Eviscerate, that will help him finish it out. But at this point, xixo is probably thinking, well, even if that's Gadsden.
He was 1 short if he backstabbed it anyway, so there was no reason to. I just double-checked myself, and as usual, the casters tried to count in 70 seconds whilst talking. Doesn't happen.
xixo gets rewarded for playing the Dirty Rat this turn. A lot more like it that there's nothing going to be in hand. He uses the Ice Lance to be able to stop this questing adventure in its tracks. And yeah, well, there's again. Just 1 turn late, unfortunately.
So I think we'll see Orange bump into the Dirty Rat here. I don't think there's he's not a backstab, so...
Well, he can't because there's
no, he's not frozen. Only the minion's frozen.
Right, but
he doesn't want to ruin the backstab, so I think we'll just see him pass then and re-dagger.
Yeah. Feels bad when you're all in, but you can't do anything. But yeah, this will give xixo a lot of room because he can Reno Jackson the following turn, heal for 16. That gives him a little bit of time going forward. He can then Ink Master Solia into Pyroblast, which will help him take out this questing adventure. Obviously, he gets a couple of draws as well if he wants to, you know, if he can pick up something like Polymorph. But
yeah, it's interesting here. The level of all-in we've seen from Orange shows you how much he thinks the Mage is favoured in this matchup. If you think the Rogue is favoured, you don't do this all-in line, you play it completely differently. And the problem is when you go all-in like this in an unfavoured matchup, if it goes wrong, it looks silly.
Yeah.
But it's not silly, it actually gives you the best chance of winning the game.
So Orange a bit afraid of the spell damage on the field there. It was possible for xixo to clear out the questing adventure with that on the field. I guess it was anyway with Fireball, Frostbolt, but much more likely with the Blood Mace down. So it looks like it's just going to be Brand plus Frostbolt here. Wants to freeze that rather than play anything like Reno Jackson. So now this allows for Ink Master Solia plus Pyroblast, and xixo can't really die from 14 behind a taunt anyway, so it doesn't need to play the Reno, he surmises.
If only I had a backstab. This game is evil sometimes.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Okay, so Orange going to have to decide how to do this, and the Auctioneer just dies on board. The Eviscerate does nothing.
It's just cruel, right? Because if Orange knew he's going to draw Gadgets in Auctioneer, he probably wouldn't have gone in with his questing. The thing is, if you draw Gadgets in 5 or 6 turns, then your decision to go all in is correct. Because, because you draw the Gadgets in way too late to make a difference at that point.
I mean, if your opponent doesn't have Dirty Rat, you just win this game. To be perfectly honest.
Kind of, sort of. There was the Ice Sense as well. And xixo has been increasing this every single turn, so it's not like he's been able to get through the Dirty Rat. Well, Inkmaster Solia, she discounts only one spell, unfortunately. Bran, but it looks like it's going to be an Eviscerate onto the Inkmaster Solia. Orange running out of damage right now. He has 1 Eviscerate left, I believe, and 1 Cold Blood, so not looking too great.
Yeah, I mean, would you want to be rich, or would you just want to have a good deal? And I think I'm on the side of the guy who wants to be rich right now. And this is starting to wind down. Orange's way to win. He can get another questing. There are 2 in the deck. He can get a big Edwin. But double Auctioneer means that that's going to be such a very difficult thing to set up.
All right, so it looks like xixo's not going to be going for the Reno Jackson quite yet. Probably wants some more removal. And obviously gets the double draw here from the Bran. So, yeah, again, the assumption from xixo is he's not going to die, and he's certainly correct here.
Yeah, being very, very patient with this Reno. And why not? If he can set up the... Yeah,
if you can set up the win. If you can set up just killing Orange here, because Orange has nothing left to do. No more damage left, no way to deal with this board. He sees writing on the wall, and that makes it 2-2. All of a sudden, we have a best of 3 on our hands.
Yeah, both players having Rogue left. Orange having Reno Mage, xixo having Reno Warlock. It's pretty close when you look at that lineup.
Yeah, and here's the point where it doesn't seem so silly going over each and every matchup at this stage, because earlier on we were kind of doing that with a bunch of, decks left over. But for xixo here with the Reno Lock, it's not the worst against the Rogue, though most people will consider it not a favorite. But against the Mage, it's not too bad either. Going to have this matchup, and okay, I was a bit hesitant to go into the fine details of this matchup, but now that we're actually going to see it, I can certainly do that. Now, Lorinda, this matchup, a lot of people think that the Reno Mage is favored because when Reno Mage first started becoming popular and strong, they immediately figured out a win condition or a way to win against the Reno.
Right, because it's easier to fireball someone who's spent a load of health drawing cards than it is to play those cards.
Right, or setting themselves to 15 and not being able to go over 15. Yep. So the Reno Mage says, you know what, I'll save my burn, I'll hit the face. And then the Reno Lock didn't really flip it until we saw players who started winning with the Reno Lock at the Gold Series Grand Finals just a few days ago, which, by the way, determined the 4 Chinese players to qualify for the Winter Championship. And what happened was players realized that, the Reno Lock is just so much more consistent with its threats because of the hero power. A lot of times the Mage is just sitting back, not really doing a whole lot, but when the Reno Lock sits back, they can just actually draw into more stuff to do, so very unlikely for them to actually be having a dead hand. And then from there, you remove all the burn from your opponent's hand by making sure that you're putting threats constantly on the field. And on top of that, you have these next level plays like going for the 1-mana Kazakus potion to get Jiraxis very healthy. Even if you go for a more expensive one, you make sure that you Jiraxis in a situation where you're unlikely to die, and then from there, you get a ton of armor, and it makes it very hard for the Mage to kill you.
We saw one of those yesterday with somebody playing. They're on 15 health, they're on 18 with a 3-3 against them. They didn't die, so they knew they could Jiraxis and then spend the 10-mana potion they picked up earlier the next turn because they weren't going to die that turn. See if I remember who that was for you. But yeah, basically you set up the situation where your Jiraxis doesn't kill you, and it turns out Jiraxis is pretty good when he doesn't kill you.
Yeah, certainly. But yeah, that has flipped the matchup on its head, and we've seen more wins from the Reno Lock than what the Reno Mage has picked up here, surprisingly to some.
Yeah, I still think the matchup is close. I still even think it favours the Mage, but the Warlock is definitely... I think people were regarding this as like 70-30 or something to the Mage originally, and it's not that. It really is just not that.
The Reno Lock win. We've seen Reno Lock win a lot in this particular match.
Yeah.
But Orange going to be deciding his 5-mana potion here from Kazakus. And all of these are somewhat tempting except for the armor here. Don't really need the armor against xixo because he is not playing the combo variant. As long as you can hold them off, you're not really too worried about staying alive. As far as health total is concerned, it is tempting to go for either the 2 minions for the immediate tempo or just the draw, since you are going to be lacking draw against this particular opponent. xixo going to be tempoing out a Faceless Shambler here. His turn would have been a bit lackluster otherwise. Certainly reasonable.
Yeah, and this is the deck that Orange has practiced the most versus the deck that xixo added at this stage of the groups. So, in terms of experience playing this matchup, Orange definitely has some advantage as well. It's a real pain to prepare for a tournament with 4 decks and have to add a 5th.
Yeah, well, that's why these guys are pros.
Yeah, that definitely is.
Well, Orange looking at his options here. Obviously, you want to make sure that you're patient with your removal. Make sure you don't overcommit to killing certain things. But looks like he's going to commit the Volcanic Potion this time, and perhaps the Frostbolt afterward.
That's what's taking him so long to decide. He just does not want to use his Frostbolt. It is such a big help to your opponent's Jiraxxus much later in the game, when they see that even the Frostbolt burn come out of your hand.
Not to mention the Archmage Antonidas can help with that as well. By the way, one thing that changes this matchup quite a bit is the fact that Orange has both the Master Solia in his deck, which can be obviously comboed with Pyroblast and then the Roaring Torch, but he also has the Antonidas. So if he ever goes off with the Antonidas, that's a situation where xixo just can't correct this.
Yep. I think Orange was spending a lot of time thinking to ping there, by the way, just to go that. But yeah, the Archmage obviously now helping to maintain that burn, but Orange really just did not want to commit that bolt there. You can see by how long he took over what looks like, if that's ladder, you just go bosh bosh, kill the board, pass turn, go.
Yeah, you don't worry about it. Oh, these spells kill these things perfectly.
That'll do for now, right?
All right, well, you see xixo not going for the Kazakus quite yet. I think he's going to be a little bit greedy with it, or I guess a better word for that, he's going for the maximum value, because he wants to get both the 1 and the 10, I believe, with the brand, obviously.
That seems the most likely, the 1 to help you survive, and then the 10 to actually win the game.
All right, well, Emperor slammed down on the field here for Orange. He certainly has what it takes to utilize the Archmage Antonidas in hand here. Can generate lots of fireballs, so just gets that out in the field. Just Archmage Antonidas going down to 6 mana by itself is pretty huge as far as that's concerned. And xixo facing this down has Blast Crystal Potion, gives him a little bit more options as far as that's concerned. Can expend the Siphon Tool as well, but looks like he's just going to go ahead and use Demon Wrath.
Yeah. Not many spots where Demon Wrath does anything at all in this match, so if you get anything out of your useless cards, then you've gained a little bit of an incremental advantage, or reduced the disadvantage.
Wow, so lots of juicy pieces in Orange's hand right now to be able to take out xixo potentially in the future. Inkmaster Solia into Fireball. Unfortunately for Orange though, he didn't discount Inkmaster Solia or a Fireball in hand, so there isn't the possibility for Inkmaster Solia into Fireball, into 3-mana Fireball, but he still could get the Roaring Torch.
Interesting how early he chose to play Kazakus in this game. More and more of the time now, people are terrified of Dirty Rat just ripping it out completely. So we're seeing people get less and less greedy with their Kazakus. Whereas on the other side, we are seeing xixo being massively greedy with it. Look at this turn.
That is insane. Did I say, oh my god, and guess the Fireball off of the Babbling Book as well. Orange is like, let me show you, D2. Let me show you. I'm going to get an Emperor off of this. Let me just show you, and I'll get the Inkmaster discounted, and I'll get a Fireball. That's 3. That's pretty insane here.
Double discounted Antonidas seems to pave the way for a whole bunch of fire.
Yeah, and Orange seems determined to prove it wrong about this matchup because holy cow, that is an insane hand. And even picks the Forbidden Flame for even more fireballs. I would not be surprised if Orange says, you know, it's time, let's go.
He may do, but he hasn't seen a Reno yet.
He gets one more fireball if he waits for the Frost Nova. He could go Tempo Reno right now. Because what else is he doing? Right? I guess he could play Inkmaster Solia as a 5/5.
He has just seen the Siphon be used to take care of a 5/5. So how do you deal with a 5/7? The problem is going into this Twisting Nether turn. And again, it's the strength of Orange in this tournament and his recent form is that he's very good at finding a way to say, have you got Twisting Nether? without committing too much. So maybe the Tempo Reno is the play we'll see him make here.
I really think the Tempo Reno is the play, because how is it going to help you going forward if you're going to kill your opponent? But looks like he's going to pull the trigger on the Antonidas. He's thinking about it and does go for it. So here we go. Arcane Blast can come down onto this Babbling Book. He can throw a Fireball at face, and he can Forbidden Flame nothing. Get another Fireball in hand. And this allows for the Ink Master Solia to get lots of value later on.
These are better deals than the Auctioneer has. These turn Naught casting cost garbage into 4-mana spells that hurt things. I think Auctioneer is just lying when he says his deals are the best. I think Antonidas' deals are much better.
I don't know. The rogue spells are pretty cheap. Fireball's a bit expensive for my taste, but this is certainly a bad position if you are xixo, having to face on 3 Fireballs in hand and being at 20 health here. So how do you go about this if you are xixo? What is the best way to do this? Looks like he's going to head for the Twisting Nether. Doesn't want the Kazakhs to get that tip damage in. And does have the Reno in hand. Picking up the Reno is absolutely huge here.
This has made stuff quite hard for Orange to play. Oddly enough, when you've got a handful of so much burn, because the 2 minions he's going to have to commit are 2 minions he doesn't want to commit just yet. But if he plays nothing, then he's not going to put any pressure on. If he goes for the burn plan, he straight up loses if Reno is played. And we saw yesterday he was loath to go for that plan until it got to such a point that I cannot win without doing it. And then he did it. His opponent didn't have Reno, and here he is in the semi-finals.
Right, except if he does it this time, then he's going to lose to Reno.
Exactly, but he waited and waited until he had no other win condition, whereas at the moment he's still got some hanging around.
A little bit. If you start giving the Reno too much time, you're going to start falling behind. But looks like he's going to commit one of these Fireballs here. Probably the... Oh, just going to go ahead and ping. I was thinking he might go for the Forgotten Torch. This
is fine. This forces Reno, because he's got 10 mana next turn. So it forces Fireball ping is lethal. So it forces Reno. And if Reno comes down, there's not much that the Warlock can do with 3 mana, and then you can Fireball Reno, and you've established your 5/5 on the board.
Right, so this is part of the reason why Orange decided to pull the trigger right now, is the very fact that xixo is not on 10 mana yet, and Reno Blast Crystal Potion is not an option.
Yeah, Orange has just used key numbers so well. I keep on about it, but yeah, it's what's making him do so well in this tournament.
Alright, well, xixo not going to committing the Sun Fury Protector, going to go ahead and tap to give himself more options. This is certainly painful for Orange, however. And picks up a Drake, which is really what he wanted to be seeing a few turns ago. In fact, he wanted that card so badly that he has messed up our Spectator mode here by flying it onto the field.
Yeah, unfortunately for him as well. He hasn't seen Shadow Flame, otherwise something like Tempo Frost Nova would have been entertaining to look for. We can see that the Ink Master is attacking, as we are fixing that for you. Flip view, so we're not going to see Orange's cards, but we know what's in his hand. There's a whole bunch of fire.
He did pick up something off of the Azure Drake, and looks like he hasn't decided to do anything rather than the Inkmaster Solia play quite yet. Hovering over that rightmost card there. And yeah, his hand is Polymorph, Frost Nova, 2 Fireballs, a Forgotten Torch, and his new card. And then there's another card that I'm blanking on right now.
I think there's a Torch. Did you say Torch?
I did say Torch.
Reno.
Oh yeah, Reno. Reno's the other card. Oh, okay. Acolyte Plane, not too bad either.
And what do you do about the Reno?
Yeah, he's thinking about whether he needs to deal with it right now. Or just go face.
Just smash you in the face. Use this Frost Nova as a tempo play. I was thinking he might not do this because of Shadow Flame, but he doesn't care about no Shadow Flame. He's going to just punch you in the face.
Yeah, keeping his Drake alive is certainly pretty nice here, and even if a taunt comes down, he can get through it and attack with the face with the Drake, or he can just go, you know, start flying fireballs to the face. So very interesting play by Orange here, and again, realizing his position, he could have gone for more draw with the Acolyte, but that gives xixo time, and Orange doesn't want to do that. Even though, you know, he's less all-in than he was, he's still all-in.
Yep, and don't forget he is threatening lethal here right now, so xixo does need to at least throw out a taunt or remove something.
Right, the Felfire Potion could be pretty useful here, especially because he can go ahead and heal on the back end. Doesn't have something like Jiraxis, however, to heal, you know, a huge chunk out of nowhere.
Yeah, difficult looking turn. He's got to then decide whether he wants to heal the Reno as well to stop him from being pinged, which of course would be pretty terrifying in terms of your health total, but he has seen the Frostbolt and he has seen the Torch.
Keep in mind, xixo is really, I mean, especially in his sick states, I'm being literal here, he actually is ill. it's hard to keep track of what's been discounted, right? There's two cards on the left that are double discounted, but then the fireballs aren't discounted, and then he's seen a Frostbolt and he's seen a Forgotten Torch. So there could be a Roaring Torch, but you can't play with both the fireballs. So all these things are going through xixo's mind right now.
Manic Soulcaster.
I think you just put the Ink Master back in your deck. Because you don't really need Reno at this point. I suppose you might need Reno.
Yeah, double Reno. A Reno later might be entertaining and just develop a 4/6. Let's see what Orange goes for. He's actually going to draw some cards by the look of it.
Yeah,
just not comfortable with his hand at all.
The downside of this, however, is that you're not getting the ping off on the Reno Jackson to combine with the Ink Master to kill it off.
Are there many bigger minions than Reno? Like, could he burn a Polymorph, worst case here?
Well, there's the Abyssal Enforcer in hand of xixo, obviously the Emperor Thorson, but...
So those can both be dealt with Fireball, so maybe he just feels okay polymorphing here.
Well, he's going to go ahead and draw first. Let's see what he does pick up off here. Gets the Flame Strike, that helps certainly.
Runs out on me.
And yeah, this allows him to play a little bit differently on this turn. Doesn't need to exactly clear every single minion when he can just Flame Strike it away.
Yeah.
It might allow him to just bump his Soulcaster, not the Soulcaster, the Ink Master into the Reno. But yeah, going to commit the Polymorph like you mentioned. Again, this is a tempo Polymorph. Doesn't want xixo to be able to deal with his board very easily.
Yeah, he's pushing to get this game over with, and why not? With 12 damage in hand, more damage in your deck. You've cycled the Torch, so that's in there. You have the Pyro, you have the Portal, and you have a whole bunch of freeze, as well as his Flame Strike. Looking good at the moment for Orange.
Well, xixo may have something to say about that, however, because the Defender of Argus will allow him to clean this board pretty well. And then speaking of the 5/2 Ink Master and the Acolyte of Pain without allowing too much card draw. And I imagine the Defender goes on the Sheep so that it can trade there and something else, not quite the Sun Fury Protector. So he's thinking of the best choice here. I imagine we're going to see the Dark Peddler and a Kazakis probably 4, 5, or 10 and get the armor here, but it looks like he's heading for something different. Okay, the Emperor plus the Defender is reasonable as well.
I don't think Orange is in that much. I mean, he's going to be in a hurry. He'd love to win this game right now, but I think that he can afford to chip away here and there over the next sort of the rest of the game. Now Reno's gone, and just try and make it so these fireballs end up just winning the game later on. He's going to become a whole lot of burn. His strategy might just revolve around not dying for a while.
Okay, interesting play here from xixo. Going to be utilizing the Abyssal Enforcer instead in order to clear up the board here. But Pyroblast comes in the hand of Orange, and after having seen a Reno, it might be heading to face.
Yeah, Pyroblast face, see what you can do. He hasn't seen Kazakas played yet, so he's every reason to believe that xixo hasn't even got it in hand.
By the way, the actual Fireball in Orange's deck has showed up. We've gotten one off of Battling Book, we've gotten some off of Archmage Antonitis, and finally we actually have the real Fireball.
Doesn't seem fair somehow.
Not at all. But Orange is probably deciding whether or not he's capable of throwing this Pyroblast to face. He gets his opponent down to 11. If Draxus is played, he might lose the race, but
Refreshment Vent is another card he'll be worried about as well.
Right, and Orange is probably counting how quickly he might die here if he does decide to just ignore the board. It's really, you know, it's very easy to just point that Pyroblast to face, but you need to really count the turns in which you die it, because once you do this, you're all in, and it looks like he's decided to continue to go all in here.
Yeah, and I like it. I think Orange is reading the game pretty well, and xixo down to what can my Kazakas do?
Yeah, Kazakas for 5, get as much armor as possible, seems to be the only real play here for xixo. Doesn't have mass healing like the Diraxis. You'd already have to have that in hand.
Gain 7 armor, there it is.
Yeah, there you go.
And summon 2 friendly demons and try and race is my prediction here. Because he's got to play the card now, so why not just have more stuff?
Yep, going to go for it and summon those 2 friendly minions to see what he picks up. Get some funnel cakes. There's a refreshment.
Oh, he had used Defender as well, so he's used all of his healing.
Alright, well, Orange unable to still win at this point, but can use Flame Strike to clear up the board quite a bit, and then follow up with Reno Jackson, and then continue his Fireball Brigade.
Yeah, there's also the option. I think I like your play. But there's the option to play the Reno and launch one of those fireballs at face, which sets up lethal.
And looks like he's thinking about it, because Fireball face plus Ping face brings xixo back down to 11. And Orange pretty much knows there's no Diraxis, because you'd rather just play the Diraxis rather than take that chance.
And if it does go wrong, you've got the Flame Strike out next turn.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, just going to go for, looks like most likely the Fireball face here. Would be very strange if he started clearing the board.
Yeah, he'll probably pick the 6/6 here.
No. He's leaning toward the face, it seems like. I suppose, I mean, like you mentioned, may not matter. But he can go Dark Peddler into Voodoo Doctor, so being at 14 actually makes a difference here for xixo. Playing around that Voodoo Doctor.
Yeah, why not? Why not, indeed. He's not going to die from the extra 6 damage he takes. xixo knows the score here. Like, he knows one of the fireballs for absolute fact,
So
and he knows what this means.
Orange just wins because xixo can't tap into Raxus and play it. He's already played the
So Dark Peddler into
Voodoo Doctor. You can't do anything. You can't win the game, I don't think, unless I'm counting this incorrectly.
trying to work. Yeah, you're right. I'm just trying to work out if there's anything crazy.
12, 15, 17, 21, and then plus the 5 would be 26. He's like, if he gets power bombing off of this, then he's pretty close to lethal, but not quite.
And none of that is going to help. And Orange looking like going to match point.
Seems like it. xixo's going to do everything in his power to get out of this mess, but having the tap certainly in the bad spots here. Going to just concede, knows that the 2 fireballs are in the hand there. And Orange, like we mentioned, match point, 1 game away from being in that final.
And it's interesting just how players know what's going on. xixo, as far as he was concerned, had seen those 2 fireballs. He actually hadn't seen the second fireball.
Actually, yeah, Orange.
He just assumed, because the play was so clear-cut, that he had 2 fireballs. If you see that on a stream, you just assume the guy's stream sniping.
Right, but yeah, Orange did throw the left fireball. Didn't really make a whole lot of difference in the end because xixo knew he was done, knew that the final fireball was picked up there. But we are going to go into a Rogue Mirror this time. This is a fun one.
Rogue Mirror is sometimes a walkover and sometimes very swingy, and it's all about these tomb pillagers in the early game. But really, that's just trading blows. It often comes down to who gets the big questing conceal.
Or the patches.
Or the patches.
Or the patches. Yeah, getting a massive questing conceal is typically how you get, or, you know, Van Cleave conceal, something like that. Because there's no healing and there's no taunts and there's no way to AoE.
No AoE, yeah, it just hits you twice.
Yeah, that's